Why? Why does Lane Kiffin continue to absolutely blow them up? Why? There we are. We always have that issue. Sorry about that. Um, why does he keep blowing these guys up? There's a lot of I've heard a lot of national guys kind of feeling sorry for Ole Miss and saying, Kiffin is obsessed with Ole Miss. He's going after him, and of course, Ole Miss fans or analysts have said the same thing as well, is that he's the one who's obsessed. It's not Ole Miss. Ole Miss has been going about their business and focusing on football. I've heard some other people say that, both people who cover LSU and people who cover the national landscape. I've heard that kind of narrative put out there. But what I've also haven't heard is that people deny what Lane Kiffin said as being the truth. This, Ole Miss, this is a university that had a KKK Klan rally on their campus in 2009. In 2009. I mean, this isn't 1959, not 1969, not 1939, 2009. We're talking the era of Animal Collective and Chillwave and Deer Hunter and Nine Inch Nails making some really cool albums at the time, and all these we're just on the cusp of getting to that high school era of graduations and senior years and that bridge to college. So it's a great time in my life as well, looking back. But when you're thinking about 2009 is also the year that the first black president takes office, to kind of show you how far America had come, right? Like America has come so far. We've moved so far from this hideous racist past, right? Because we now have a black president. And in that same year, later that year, in fact, while Obama's in office, not saying it's related, but just saying that it's just very poignant to compare. Ole Miss in 2009 allows a 10-minute KKK rally on their official campus before it got way too much attention that they're kind of like, okay, look, let's have you guys get off the property, which is why, they cover the Confederate flag that they used to fly until 2020, and they covered it with those trees. Tommy Tuberville had an issue with it. Lane Kiffin has said he had an issue with it. That flag was changed in 2020, most likely due to kind of that 2020 era of getting rid of a lot of historical statues and things like that either were deemed to celebrate or did in fact celebrate the Confederacy or the South in the Civil War, or being pro-slavery or those type of things. I don't necessarily look at a plantation and just go like, oh, pro-slavery, but at the same time, what was going on there? Who was living there? How were they living there? Why, like, how could they live in complete opulence? Because there were slaves. Like you can understand why people are still, very affected by this stuff and very pissed off by this stuff, and why Lane Kiffin used the word grandparents when talking about people who advised these recruits to stay away from Ole Miss. And that's the generation of segregation. Another word he used, segregation. And so allow me to be cynical for a minute here. Okay. Allow me to be cynical. And I would call myself pro Kiffin for sure. Like I really think what Kiffin's project is going to be, if he sticks it out with LSU for at least 4 years, and LSU give him what he needs to be successful, which they have done that and more. to an outrageous point. Um, like said no for not for anything. And it's allowed him to build at least a squad that looks like a contender, right? Appears to be a contender on paper. But allow me to be cynical. Did Lane Kiffin say what he said, which is something I had heard because okay, look at just look at the obvious LSU to Ole Miss crossover and some of the same athletes and recruits that both schools have been going after for the last what decade, and I've been covering LSU for now 8 years. This is something that I had heard from probably about five different people, and I'd also heard from a few who were saying, "Oh, that's overblown. That's not a big deal." Who were like, proud Ole Miss people, and who were black, and who were saying, "Oh, that's overblown. That's not a big deal. It's all good. Like, you got to come down here. It's not a big deal. Like we're not going to turn you into Ole Miss fan, but." You got to see Oxford, and it's nothing like what people say Mississippi Burning, that movie with Gene Hackman and stuff. Oh, that's the past. We left that long ago. Um, I did Lane Kiffin use that race card to help LSU recruiting wise for the future? Did Lane Kiffin say, "I am willing to use," as Chris Smith, the author of that Vanity Fair article, said, "any weapon at his disposal to win at all costs on the recruiting trail, on the field, gain any advantage NIL wise in the transfer portal." And he sees that Ole Miss is going to have potentially a very good season. They got Trinidad Chambliss coming back. They got Kawan Lacey coming back. I don't know if people understand this, but Trinidad Chambliss should have been a bigger story last season. How dominant, how unbelievable he was, and how transformative he was as a quarterback for Ole Miss, and took them to the semifinals, man. Took them to the semifinals. A university that had never even been to any postseason whatsoever, really, until Kiffin arrived, and then they go to a Sugar Bowl within a year. Have a guy who was kind of thought of as a Heisman level type of quarterback who didn't quite get there to that level, but and was expected to be a first, maybe early second round pick, and then he tears his ACL. Matt Corral in that game in that Sugar Bowl, sadly, but Lane Kiffin consistently was great for Ole Miss, consistently was their most successful head coach. And you had all these pieces. He tries to get all these guys to come over, tries to get all the coaches to come over. But you leave behind a few really important key gems there at Ole Miss. Kawan Lacey rushed for 21, I think it was, rushing touchdowns last year. Monstrous player, monstrous player. Even when injured, he was absolutely dominant. Trinidad Chambliss, we saw his dual threat capabilities. They have some pieces to their defense still left behind. Suntarine Perkins, headline guy, but they still have more in the can there, I think, than we're thinking of. Ole Miss, as Lane Kiffin understands, is going to be a contender this season. And they've actually been, placed in most analysts' mind, in most metrics rankings. Ole Miss has been ahead of LSU, except for in one place, Las Vegas. Okay, they are projected for like 7 to 8 wins, and LSU is projected to 9 wins. So it is very interesting that the money would be on LSU, the kind of hearts and minds of the college football public, media especially, who are very, very sympathetic to Ole Miss and think Kiffin is just like being horrific to them and just won't stop going after them. He's left, okay, leave, that's fine. The way the way he did it, they don't respect it. They don't respect him for it. They think it's a betrayal, but okay. But now you just keep taking shot after shot after shot after us. And now you've picked a scab on a very painful truth. Let's be real here. Ole Miss, the reason they are so hyper offended by this is because what Lane Kiffin said is true. Ole Miss has a difficult racial past, racist past that goes beyond the word difficult. I mean, difficult is putting it very mildly when you're talking about the name Ole Miss itself. Just do a little Google searching, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So you've got all of these things at play here, but that's not uncommon for any other SEC school. But here's where it is. Here was where it is different. A lot of these other SEC schools left those hyper, openly blatant racist traditions behind and completely squashed them, turned their back on them. LSU couldn't afford not to when you're talking about the absolute numbers, when the majority of the community in Baton Rouge, in those surrounding Louisiana areas, predominantly black. In Oxford, in Mississippi, predominantly white. And there's a reason it is because a lot of the black folk that were there in Mississippi are gone. They weren't going to go through what their grandparents told them about, where there was some real racial violence, some real, I mean, that people need to understand that Mississippi is, as you know, there's places all over the South where terrible attacks happen, but time and time and time and time and time again, Mississippi is the location for civil rights era murders, horrific attacks, political assassinations, a bombing of a church with some girls in it. There's some horrific stuff going on from the end of the Jim Crow era in the civil rights era. Of course, there were horrific stuff going on in the Jim Crow era, but okay. So here we go. Mississippi burning murders. Outside Philadelphia, Mississippi, local KKK members and law enforcement officers collaborated to abduct and murder 3 civil rights workers, James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner. Their bodies were discovered in an earthen dam, sparking national outrage. The murder of Henry D. and Charles Moore, May 1964. 2 19-year-old black youths were abducted in Medville, Mississippi by Klansmen, tortured, and thrown into the Mississippi River. Their bodies were recovered during the search for Chaney, Goodman, and Schwerner. So while they're looking for the other 3 bodies, they find 2 more. Murder of Vernon Dahmer, almost 2 years later in January 1966. The home and store of Vernon Dahmer, a prominent NAACP leader in Forest County who advocated for voting rights, was firebombed by KKK members. Dahmer died from smoke inhalation after exchanging gunfire with Klansmen to protect his family. That's a badass, though, that he was like, I'm not gonna just submit. We're fighting. Bombing campaign against the Jewish community. The White Knights expanded their targets to Jewish institutions and leadership, which has been well known that they also target Jews. And then they're also anti-Catholic too. It's like, who don't they hate? Like, they're bombing synagogues in Jackson, Mississippi, and Meridian, Mississippi. Guys, Sam Bowers, big time leader who was there in Mississippi. Like, they literally did all of this again. And I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the most famous ones I could pull up and just kind of go through to kind of illustrate this point. And everyone in Mississippi, everyone who is an Ole Miss fan, understands this past, whether they want to admit that or not. They're just pissed that Lane Kiffin's the one bringing it up. Lane Kiffin could say anything about Mississippi, and they'd say, "Shut up, shut up, take a name." They pull Will Smith, take your wife's name out of my effing mouth. Take my name out your mouth, which is just such a stupid thing to say, in my opinion. Take my name out your mouth. Like, oh God. Some of the trends of like insults or like things that people say to like freak out each other are so dumb nowadays. But we wanted to present and show to you the article we wrote to kind of invite everybody who watches our content to also be able to read and see how you can access our content. See, first, okay, let me show you. Go to LSUODYSSEY.com. Here comes the site pulling up. Okay. Go to content home. I mean, actually, if you're on a laptop, it's right there on the home page. Right there down below. Let me go back and show you. So you got that right there. And then Lane Kiffin versus the state of Mississippi, which is the name of this podcast. I've already gotten, and here's the thing, this article hasn't done a bunch of numbers yet. People are just starting to kind of get to reading it. And I think some people are kind of exhausted over what had been going on. But I have received more hate mail and like maybe I hate to call them threats because they're kind of, I'm gonna kick your ass. Is that a threat? Like some online guy is saying that like it's happened a billion times, I guess. But like actual like just try coming to Oxford type of stuff, in my DMs. And I was pretty blown away by how reactive some Ole Miss fans have been to my past stuff. Like Lane Kiffin has himself, LSU's head coach, has retweeted a lot of our work, and when he does, man, it triggers Ole Miss fans big time because there'll be a passage in there that just really gets them. You think Lane Kiffin's authentic? I'm gonna, like they'll absolutely go freaking nuts. Okay, but let's try and get that better so we can. There we go. Now we're a little bit bigger, but we still got the article. But I wanted to illustrate that, yes, while what Lane Kiffin said, though, in this article, cynically, as much as he may believe this, I think he also did this for recruiting purposes. I want to read to you what I wrote. I wrote, Lane Kiffin doesn't need to apologize for saying the same thing I've heard from some recruits or former players who went to Oxford, felt its vibe, and soaked in the culture and saw it for what it really is. This is a place that may not be openly racist anymore, but to quote Kiffin, they're just different in Mississippi. And when it comes to Kiffin derangement syndrome, it's definitely become a fan base culture that's both toxic and out of control. To be fair, some questions for Kiffin would be, how come you're just now revealing what recruits' families said about Mississippi? How come you always said such glowing things about Oxford? Never mentioned the race stuff and only bring it up now. Is this about recruiting? Are you perhaps using the race card as a weapon against your former school in order to secure future recruiting wins? LSU fans must be honest with themselves when looking at what our head coach just said, because the impact could be far-reaching. Now I want to focus on this part because what he said is true. We've gone through that. But now, why did Lane Kiffin say it? Why did Lane Kiffin say it? I want you to answer that question for me in the comments, whether you're watching this later. Post those down below. We'd love to read your comments and we'd love to interact with your comments, get these little debates going, or just in total agreement. You know, sometimes you're just in total agreement. There's nothing to really say, oh, you got this wrong, or maybe you're coming up short. Sometimes it's things that are just undeniable. I think what Lane Kiffin said was undeniable about there being concerns for totally underwhelming word there, but concerns about Mississippi's racist past. So, Ole Miss fans can cry about this. They can get butthurt and moan about this. I think they actually have a chance to have a pretty damn good football team this year. But the more that Lane Kiffin lives rent-free in their minds, the better. Because I'm telling you, like, it could be something where, Kiffin could kind of turn this situation away from Pete Golding. Pete Golding's getting a lot of momentum his way with those playoff wins, feeling like, okay, I've got a few recruiting wins, a few good things happening for me in the portal. We've retained Trinidad Chambliss and Kawan Lacey against all odds. I mean, if they didn't go to the NFL, everyone thought there's no way they're going to stay with them. They're going with Kiffin to LSU for sure. And it didn't happen for either one. They stayed unthinkably. I mean, that was a crazy move by Ole Miss to pull that off. You got to hand it to them. And that's the nucleus of a team that went to the semifinals. We got to understand and respect that. But here's the thing. We're talking about a fan base and a program that act as if they've won as many titles as LSU has. As if they've even competed in a single SEC title game, which they haven't. They have not. Ole Miss has never played in a single SEC title game. Granted, the SEC title game, I think, began in like 1990, 91. But, or maybe it was 92. But that's plenty of time to make one, right? They couldn't make a single one. And until Lane Kiffin came into town, you guys weren't worth a shit. And here's the thing. I really do believe this. Had Kawan Lacey not gotten banged up and had Ole Miss permitted Kiffin to coach in the postseason before he went to LSU, I do believe that Ole Miss has a great chance of winning this whole thing last season. It was wide open. Indiana were a dominant, great team, but man, if Ole Miss had gotten like a few big plays on them early, say go up, 10-0 or something, punch Indiana in the mouth, that throws Signetti and all those Mendoza, everything out the window. Their whole game plan goes out the window. Now they're chasing a team that could be explosive and just pedal to the metal the whole rest of the game. Ole Miss could have won a national championship with Lane Kiffin. They chose not to do that, and even Pete Golding got them to the semifinals. So there's respect for what Ole Miss has achieved this last season, but also complete disrespect and dishonor in the way that they've handled themselves since, and the way that they handled themselves before for decades, and the pompous entitlement they seem to have, thinking that they're an automatic champion. They're an automatic contender. They are, an anchor, a pinnacle of college sports, college football especially. And that's just not true. Ole Miss still gets stomped recruiting wise when it comes to Ole Miss versus LSU. Ole Miss, you know, when Trinidad Chambliss goes and there's no quarterback guru developer like Lane Kiffin, no play caller like Charlie Weiss or a guy like Joe Cox there, how are you going to pull in top quarterback talent? Pete Golding might still be able to bring it in on the defensive side of the ball, but everyone's going to understand what Ole Miss has just lost. And if they want what Ole Miss had, there's only one guy to get that pedal to the metal, up-tempo offensive attack that is so fantastic at developing quarterbacks, running backs. That's Lane Kiffin's LSU Tigers. And it might take a year or two for this team to really fully unleash itself and fully take flight. And that, I think, all depends on Sam Leavitt's health, man. If Sam Leavitt can be healthy, there's LSU will take some stopping, man. When you went back and you looked at the numbers, okay, this is crazy, guys. And I'm going to prove this to you. Sam Leavitt had 38 missed tackles forced as a running quarterback in 2024 for Arizona State. So that's 38 missed tackles forced. 38 missed tackles forced. When tacklers are coming at you as a running quarterback, you're making guys miss. Jaden Daniels had 40 in 2023. 40. So Jaden Daniels, and I think a lot of that was just Jaden Daniels' outright speed. He didn't even have to make people miss because he was just gone, but I didn't expect to see that stat, that he also had 52 total missed tackles forced in just 2 seasons at Arizona State. And one of those seasons, let's remember, 2025, he only played, I think it was 7 games. So if that Liz Frank injury can even, if it takes away even maybe just 10%, 15% of his speed and his elusiveness and his moves, I still think he could be an absolute dynamic threat as a dual threat quarterback. But man, that injury, and you're paying him, this kid, $6 million. Remember that. You're paying Sam Leavitt $6 million. You to quote Jane's Addiction, you gotta cash in now, honey. You really want to make sure that Sam Leavitt joins Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow as the third in a row transfer quarterback starter who comes to LSU and wins a Heisman. And Jaden Daniels should have won a national championship. We all know that in 2023. That should have happened. That was a championship offense. And with Whit Weeks on the field, a freshman Whit Weeks on the field, and maybe you pull a few guys off of that defense and maybe trust in youth here or there, that could have been a defense that could have at least given Jaden Daniels a machine, and Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., those guys just a few extra possessions a game. We're talking about, are you going to be that third in the line guy to win a national title? But at least you've got 2 Heisman Trophy winner quarterbacks, the last 2 who've been your transfer starters. The last 2 guys to enter the season as a transfer starter, not Michael Van Buren, who started later in the year, was never expected to be the starter, not even expected to play much except for like maybe some wildcat packages or something. Total emergency there. But Leavitt follows right in line with Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow, but now paid $6 million. I can tell you for a fact that's more than LSU paid Jaden Daniels. And as far as Joe Burrow, I actually don't know for a fact if LSU, like if a dime traded hands from LSU to Joe Burrow. I don't know about that. But I know for a fact in the NIL era with Jaden Daniels, yeah, Sam Levitt's being paid a lot more than Jaden Daniels was. He is dealing with an injury that is severe, that can hamper your speed. But we've seen him out there. We've seen him, you know, I heard some analysts saying that he was kind of in the shadows and wasn't really doing anything, but it's like, man, he was there every practice except for when he had his operation to remove some scar tissue, I think it was, something like that. It was or no, to pull out some pins. He was pretty active throughout camp, throwing the ball all over the place and really dissecting and working on the Kiffin offense and what is going to be required of him so that, maybe his brain can help his hurt ankle out of a few tough moments early in the season where maybe his ankle isn't fully healthy for those first 4 or 5 games and he can't be that unreal dual threat Arizona State supernova that we've seen as a dual threat quarterback. But perhaps his brain can bail him out of a few moments and LSU, have Sam Levitt kind of save himself, kind of pace himself for the season, which is, I think, what you got to do. I think against Clemson, if you can't beat Clemson, you need Sam Levitt to go off or something to beat Clemson. I think that's just nuts. Like, come on, that would be wild. I don't know why the Sam Levitt clip isn't loading. We never get the white circle. What's going on here? Sam Levitt, I'm so impressed by what he did at Arizona State, guys. Like his stats at Arizona State, freakish. What he did as a rushing quarterback there, as far as making people miss, as far as racking up. Look at this. 2 seasons starting Arizona State, 900 rushing yards, 622 yards after contact, 52 missed tackles forced, 38, like I said before, in just that one season in 2024, 39 rushes of 10 plus yards, 39 rushes of 10 plus, 63 first downs converted with his legs. I mean, I wish this clip would load, but my God, it's a clip that you can see on my Twitter. Follow me at Lon Phillips, where you really see him spin and make two defenders run into each other. It is simply irresistible. I mean, it's just outrageous. It's outrageous. Sam Levitt, I think his football smarts will help him through that early part of the season. I think that's where you will see him maybe have his toughest, most adverse moments, is that first part of the season. But here's the thing. Is our head coach putting a target on our team's back with this type of stuff? Is Kiffin putting too much pressure on his team by saying this type of stuff on a guy like Sam Levitt to deliver? Because without Levitt, it's going to be a tough season. And it's going to be a season where you waste a really good defense. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope like who you saw on Longstreet could really like deliver and pull it off, or Landon Clark even. And I'm just very skeptical of that happening. And so you need Sam Levitt to come in here and deliver. $6 million you're paying this dude. Lane Kiffin's whole project is upwards of $250-300 million we're talking about here, when he's at 91 million for himself. however many to flip his staff, like almost 100 million to flip that offensive staff and to pull some of these guys over here to retain Blake Baker, the highest paid assistant in the college football. Charlie Weiss, I believe, is the highest paid offensive assistant in college football. So I think he's second to Blake Baker. So I have to get confirmation on that with Charlie Weiss. If he's not second to Blake Baker, he's at least top 3 or 4. I mean, he's paid something like 7.5 million a year. It's crazy. So if you're gonna have all of this investment, when you're gonna pay 4 million for Jordan Seaton at left tackle, when you're gonna pay 6 million for quarterback Sam Levitt, people are going to want to see results immediately. LSU Tiger fans will demand those results. And here's the thing, we've embraced Lane Kiffin with open arms, just like LSU fans did for Brian Kelly. And just like LSU fans did when they finally accepted Orgeron, I think in the beginning of that 2018 season, after that win against Miami, is when I kind of felt that LSU fans had really gone, okay, Coach O's our guy here. You know, at least for the time being, they didn't know what the future held, but like, we like what he stands for. He's our guy, you know. That's when I felt that change. 2017, I loved Coach O anyway. Like, I love that he stepped in. I was a fan of Coach O. I knew his history. I was already all in. But with Kiffin, I think there's going to be some Tiger fans who, after these type of statements involving race into the whole thing, involving politics into the whole thing, which no one wants, and I'm meaning no one. But here's the thing: sometimes you can't avoid it. Sports, politics are going to mix. That's going to happen. A lot of times, politics is life, really. Like you say, "Oh, you're so political," but then it's like, well, wait until it affects your life, and then you're going to be pretty political, I guess, until that law changes or whatever that affects you directly. But um, we don't want that in sports. We don't want that in sports at all. Period. And so that is one thing I don't like about Lane Kiffin's comment, is that as much as he is a football guy, as much as he focuses on football, this is something that he likes to do, is troll the other team and kind of be a little theatrical about this, a little have these social media moments where the entire freaking internet is just blowing up with Kiffin, Kiffin, Kiffin. And you know what? Whether that was intended or not, he won the day, because not only was he telling the truth, but the Kiffin brand just keeps growing, just keeps expanding. And there are people who say this guy's like the Music Man. He's going to come to the town, he's going to promise everything, and then he's going to take the money and run out of town on the first ferry that he can get, the first ferry or wagon that he can hitch a ride on. And you know, there's some intense worry about that from some Tiger fans that I've heard from. You know, some people saying to me in some direct messages, I think I'm changing my opinion on Kiffin. I'm kind of not. I'm like, what? Come on, that's ridiculous. And it's purely about winning here. And Lane Kiffin knows that. LSU knows that. Everyone knows that. If Lane Kiffin wins at LSU, everything will be fine. If Lane Kiffin doesn't win at LSU, these type of moments will be annoying. They'll be you'll want to pull your hair out. You know, like G.I. Jane. It's gonna be it'll be insufferable, like Brian Kelly's dry humor, you know, like but in the honeymoon phase, it's great. That's our guy, you know, we're backing him to the hilt. But if this backfires, man, if you have families now questioning motive and things like that, questioning authenticity, especially when it comes to race relations, are you using this as a prop to advertise that you're the more progressive school, that you're the more progressive coach, that you will, never be racist in any way, shape, or form. Like there's a lot of meat on that bone because of Lane Kiffin. He invited this conversation, and if he ever says he doesn't or didn't, and like, no, you did. Like, I'm fine with it because you told the truth. You shouldn't have should have never apologized like he did to On Three's Wilson Alexander, good friend of the show. Wilson, I love that dude. Absolute, just badass reporter, Wilson Alexander. But Wilson sat down with Lane Kiffin for 45 minutes and got this apology from Lane Kiffin the next day before the article ran that they were going to put out. Um, and he apologizes. I don't mean to offend anybody, but then doubles down on the points that he made. And it's like, yes, you didn't mean to like hurt their feelings, maybe, or piss people off that you care about in Mississippi still, Lane. But you knew what was going to happen by saying this. It's not like you didn't think that they wouldn't be thought of as racist if you didn't if you said this like, oh, well, that has nothing to do with racism. That's just him kind of insinuating that black people don't want to go to Mississippi for some reason. Like, of course, obvious reasons why. It's obvious why Lane Kiffin said what he said. There's multiple layers here. There's honesty, there's truth, there's the reality of it all. All that are, recruits have said this. Ole Miss does have this past. Lane Kiffin was probably sickened of having to defend his program against its past and against its current state of mind with these players constantly. Maybe that's a fact. He insinuated it that clearly was a struggle. But there's also this layer of, is this for recruiting? Is this a weapon for recruiting? And if that backfires, that'd be dangerous for LSU's recruiting, abilities and stances, because we have a really good thing going here. And LSU is extremely diverse as a community anyway. You don't have to do this. You don't have to go this route. I admire the honesty. I appreciate the honesty. And I would rather him said it than didn't, because I'm just very pro free speech. Let the chips fall where they may, and then we'll figure that out afterwards. But in his position, saying this may be either the most genius thing Lane Kiffin's ever thought of, or the most ill-advised. So we know that Lane Kiffin has really, all he said was basically that Ole Miss has problems recruiting because young black men learn from their grandparents about the racism and the troubles in Mississippi and how it was worse off than pretty much everywhere else. Unequivocally. The list is long, and we went through part of it, just part of it. But you don't want to politicize these things. You don't want to raise the temperature of this game that's already to an outrageous level. I'm okay. I was going to write this in the article, but I held it back because I was worried about writing it. But I think I have to say it at this point because I think I want people to be. I think saying it actually would have a more safer impact. I am worried for people's safety going into this game. September 19th, LSU going to Oxford. I'm worried about the safety of LSU fans. I'm worried about the safety of Ole Miss fans. I'm worried about the safety of LSU's head coach, about LSU staff. I'm worried about the safety of security, of police. I'm worried about everyone there because of either one crazy psycho Ole Miss fan does something nuts. We all know what I'm referring to. Something that happens quite commonly in America nowadays. And we are very damn lucky that college football and most college sports have such great people who follow it that these type of things don't happen. But this type of shit can happen anywhere nowadays. It doesn't have to be, yo, you're hanging around the wrong people or not. This type of stuff can happen anywhere. And God forbid we do not want this happening at any LSU game, at any college football game, anywhere. We don't want any violence of any kind to any of our people, their people, any people. And I take it very seriously when I've seen the threats made and the temperatures risen to such degrees where I think we need to simmer this down. I think if I were advising Kiffin, I would almost take the phone away. I'd be like, "Hey man, like you don't need to say another word. Like not that it's a problem that you're saying anything. It's just that you've said enough. Like let them marinate on that. Let it sit in their heads. Let them obsess over that. Let them use that as their bulletin board material because that's just not going to help you win anything if that's your bulletin board material. But I worry about the safety of everybody if this continues to escalate and get nasty because now you're talking about the culture of Mississippi. People are feeling like they have to defend their state, the very towns that they live in and grew up in, and they feel very prideful of overcoming this racism, this racist past that maybe a lot of these folks were born with, and maybe they've overcome that. I want to give them the benefit of that doubt. But to try and compare yourself to Baton Rouge is impossible because Baton Rouge is predominantly black. It is a black city. And Louisiana, in the most part, and in really like in tone and in vibe, is a black state. Let's be honest here. Even the white guys got some sauce. And so, you know, you're talking about Oxford, Mississippi compared to Baton Rouge. I mean, come on. So I mean, we can go a lot of different places with this, but I think we've said enough on this, and we'll be covering some more action with this team. We have a crazy profile article about to come out in the next few days for one of LSU's more interesting players on this team that we haven't covered yet. But I also want to apologize for we had a special guest lined up on Monday, and this special guest, everything was figured out, everything was good, and then they are doing a certain training and a certain thing that was very important, and it went way over than it was supposed to because of some necessary things. Um, and this is LSU's 2027 quarterback commit Peyton Houston was going to be on the show on Monday, and we unfortunately, his father Sean called us and said, "Shoot, he's on the field right now." He told me, you're supposed to do a show, but he's not going to make it tonight. So we're going to reschedule that. But I just want you to know we are trying to get as cool guests, the best guests for you as possible. And Pop Houston, man, when we get to do that show, it's gonna be fantastic. We got some great stuff planned. Take Pop through some plays, let him dissect some film, his views on Kiffin, his views on like LSU before Kiffin, and kind of him committing while LSU is like their worst offensive season ever, and what kind of he thought about that. All of these things. We're gonna talk about all of that. But we're going to keep it real and hopefully get Peyton in the house to do this interview. Also, definitely a lot more on the horizon that we're looking for and trying to push for, because we want to bring as many voices on the show as possible. I want to engage in debates on this show. And I don't think we've ever been able to do much of that outside of a few guests where me and the guest may have debated, or I've called them out on something and we've kind of gone at it with a question or something. That's happened, but we need more debate and more counterpoints on this show, on this platform, and we are trying to deliver that for you. So we will try and whatever we can do as much as possible, bring as many different voices to this platform as possible. So hopefully we can get a few different friends to hop on the show and hang out. We did a great one with Jacques Doucet this last Friday. Jacques was hilarious for over an hour. So many incredible points about this team, about the Kelly era, about where this team he thinks might be headed this season, and totally saying it was a playoff or bust season, and that was for real, and it is with all this investment. Um, but definitely check that show out. That was worth watching. That Jacques Doucet interview. It was always so cool to see Jacques. We always have a good time whenever I see him at these press conferences or at games. Um, really, really, really amazing person, and an honor to have him on the show. So check that out. And everybody, thank you for so much for watching. And definitely check out the article that we read from. I think it's worth your time. Here's the thing, we're not going to write anything that is going to waste your time, not going to give you information, not going to entertain you, not going to make you laugh, not going to bring you to the cutting edge of what we think is college football and LSU football coverage. And we're going to try and bring you as much breaking news as we possibly can, as we always have. Um, many times have we broken stories, whether credited or not. It doesn't matter. We've tried to provide that service to our fans. That you know, this is our community, guys. This is our LSU community. We are all LSU fans here, and my fan friends. That's guys like the Go Team podcast. People like Logan Graffia. Um, People like Ryan, people like CBD, Colby, people like Go Girl, or of course, as always, Jamer, you know, Lewis freaking Corona. Um, there's so many great people. Josh Logan. There's so many good-hearted people within the LSU fan base and LSU community. Fred from Plano. The list goes on and on. But Peggy, so many great people. Everybody, thank you so much for um checking this out, and I really hope that you check out the article too. I think it is worth your time. We're really trying to make sure that we put something out, it's going to be all killer, no filler. And so check that out, read that if you can, if you will, and if you want to. Everybody, go Tigers. Always a pleasure. Thank you all.